Yo, what is up, guys? Welcome back to another Battle for Azeroth video. Today we're going to be talking about the Arms Warrior. I've been playing Arms Warrior pretty much the whole Legion expansion, and to see the changes that are happening on the Battle for Azeroth Alpha, I think that the class is moving in the right direction, and I think it's pretty exciting, and I think a lot of you guys that play Arms Warrior are going to be excited about it, and that's why I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about it, talk about how Warbreaker has been actually made into the spec, and how the spec has changed, in my opinion, for the better. And I'm going to walk you through the baseline abilities that the Arms Warrior has. That is different, from Legion, obviously. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the talent reworks, and then I'll talk about the playstyle overall and show you a little bit of leveling footage. So let's just go ahead and dive into it, guys. Just letting you know right off the bat, there's been quite a few additions, or just a couple additions to the Arms Warrior spec. And throughout all of the Battle of Azeroth Alpha classes, most classes haven't really gotten a whole lot of new abilities, but this one has had quite a few additions. So the very first one I'm going to talk about is Battle Shout. For everyone who doesn't know, buffs are coming back in Battle for Azeroth. Arcane Intellect, Battle Shout, Power Word, Fortitude, like all of those are coming back. And Battle Shout is one of them. It increases the attack power of all raid and party members within 100 yards by 10% for 1 hour. It's just an awesome buff to be able to have, and I think that Arms Warriors will definitely be more taken in raids, specifically because of this. Even when I killed Mythic Kill Jaden, we didn't even have an Arms Warrior. We only ran with a Death Knight and Demon Hunters and Rogues. We really didn't even have an Arms Warrior, and I think that if this were in the game, Arms Warrior would be a necessity to a raid just because of how much utility it gives you and how much extra damage it gives you. And then Sweeping Strikes was actually built into the class spec now. So it used to be a talent right here, but they've replaced that with some new abilities, which I'll get into in a little bit. But Sweeping Strikes is now a baseline Arms Warrior ability, and it actually works a little bit differently now. So previously it used to passively give you a extra hit of your Mortal Strike on a nearby target, and also an extra hit of an Execute on a nearby target, or two nearby targets. Now it's only one additional target within 8 yards from 100% damage, and for 10 seconds your Overpower, Mortal Strike, Slam, and Execute, so 4 abilities will be benefited from Sweeping Strikes, but only one target. So this is specifically a 2-target ability. You really will be using more AoE abilities like Whirlwind and Bladestorm / Ravager in a fight that has more than 2 targets, but if there is only 2 targets, you'll be doing single target damage with Sweeping Strikes up. And it does last for 10 seconds, but it has a 25-second cooldown, so there will be some downtime on Sweeping Strikes. And then also, we have a brand new ability baked into the baseline Warrior spec, which is going to change the entire damage rotation, in my opinion, and that is Overpower. So Overpower used to be in the baseline spec, as everyone knows, and then it got moved over to a talent for Legion, but now it's finally back as a baseline ability, and I'm really, really happy about this one because it does quite a lot of cool stuff, especially if you have the Dreadnought talent. It changes the way you play Arms Warrior pretty significantly. So just reading it off, it is a pretty heavy damage ability with a 12-second cooldown, and it also increases the damage of your next Mortal Strike or Execute by 20%, stacking up to 2 times. So this, in combination with the Dreadnought talent, basically Dreadnought gives you 2 charges of Overpower, which means that you'll be able to, in a way, increase your Mortal Strike or Execute, kind of similar to how Focus Rage used to work. But that was removed this expansion, and Focus Rage was kind of built into this Overpower mechanic, and I think that that's really great. I really never liked Focus Rage as a talent, and seeing it kind of baked into an ability that actually does damage, and I think that that's cool, and I think that's a better design in my opinion. So we have Overpower back in the DPS rotation. It doesn't cost any rage, which is great. Mortal Strike is a 5-second cooldown, 30 rage. Same thing it used to be, but there's no mortal combo anymore. So you don't have 2 stacks of Mortal Strike. And then also I want to talk about Colossus Smash real quick. And that is going to be... Oh, I'm expecting a Warbreaker. Let me get out of that real quick. So Colossus Smash is a 45-second cooldown. And it does the same thing. It increases the damage dealt by 30%, and the mastery has been completely changed for Arms Warriors. It actually was changed from increasing your Colossus Smash damage whenever you have that debuff up to Deep Wounds, which is basically how it used to be in previous expansions. The Deep Wounds damage is basically afflicted on a target whenever you hit an enemy with Mortal Strike or Execute. Okay, so you're wanting to use Mortal Strike on cooldown. Basically, it will put on deep wounds for 3 seconds on a target. If you sweeping strikes, it'll do it on 2 targets, and overall, that's just like how it works for the baseline abilities. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way. Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing. With Tactician was completely changed. You don't reset Colossus Smash anymore. You actually reset damage on Overpower, or you reset your cooldown on Overpowered. So you have a 0.75 chance per rage. Basically the same thing how it was in Legion, where you have a chance to reset your cooldown on Colossus Smash, but now it is on Overpower. So you're going to be getting Overpower resets, and in my opinion, this is going to speed up the damage rotation a lot, which I think is very, very much needed for Arms Warrior. All right, so moving into the talents. The entire first tier was pretty much reworked in its entirety. Like, it used to have Sweeping Strikes, Overpower, and I don't even remember off the top of my head what the other one was. But War Machine is now built into the Arms Warrior spec. It was in Fury, but now it's in Arms, and it is more of an Arms type talent. The way it's been reworked. Your auto attacks generate 10% more rage passively, and killing an enemy generates 20 rage and increases movement speed by 8 seconds. This is different from Fury because it would last for 15 seconds in Legion Fury, and I think it would give you like damage percent increase and also movement speed. So this is different. It actually gives you more rage over time, and especially if you're killing a lot of targets. Sudden Death is in this tier as well, so Sudden Death is basically the exact same. I'm not really going to go over that too much. It just gives you a chance to have your Execute. And then they have a brand new ability that is like a builder, which is brand new for Arms Warrior, because Arms Warriors don't really have like builder abilities that will build rage. This is a builder ability that will give you a single target amount of damage. It generates 30 rage, and it's on a 17-second cooldown, 20-second without any haste. This is really interesting, but I've heard a lot of Arms Warriors say that they're not too impressed by this, and I think the reason for that is because War Machine and Sudden Death kind of compete a little bit more than Skull Splitter, and just by playing Arms Warrior on the alpha, I haven't had any rage building problems, so I don't know where this fits into the overall rotation quite yet, and if this is going to be taken. But moving on from that, we have Double Time in the next tier, Stormbolt, and they actually removed Shockwave and replaced it with Impending Victory. And Impending Victory is basically Victory Rush, but it has a cooldown, and you can use it without having to kill anyone. So how it works is you basically use this. It's on a 30-second cooldown. It makes you a little bit more tanky, and when you use this ability, it'll cost 10 rage and heal you for 15% of your maximum health. I can see this being super useful in PvP to be able to get some self-healing out, but also killing an enemy that yields experience or honor will reset the cooldown of this. This is meant to literally make you more tanky, and I can see it being useful. The only thing you sacrifice is like an extra charge or your stun, which is a very difficult decision, but it is a cool ability. I'm happy to see new abilities be built in. I like Shockwave though. I thought that was a cool ability as well, but I guess that didn't fit in with Blizzard's design philosophies for the class. But overall, I did like Shockwave. I thought that was a cool ability, so maybe, I don't know, whatever. That's not really my decision. And we have Trauma, Rend, and Avatar. I don't think there's any difference in this tier at all. Avatar, Rend, and Trauma all being in the same one. I think actually Avatar used to be down here. It's hard to remember off the top of my head, but we have Rend on the same tier as Avatar. I think Trauma is basically more for AoE damage, AoE type builds, which I'll get into later. We have Rend, which is more single target, but I think Avatar will probably be the more it's actually, without taking Avatar, you don't have like an offensive steroid, like an offensive cooldown in a way. You're more about sustained damage, with like Colossus Smash having a little bit extra damage as well. I think Avatar will probably be the more single target focused, like boss fight, or even in PvP, a little bit more important here. All right, in the 60, we have Second Wind, Bounding Stride, Defensive Stance. Nothing's really changed about these, so I'm not going to really worry about explaining these. There just really isn't anything too interesting about this. And then we have Unbridled Wrath, 75 tier. Nothing really crazy here. And then we have Cleave actually in the talents now. So how this works is you swipe all enemies in front of you with a sweeping attack, doing a medium amount of damage, and then inflicts deep wounds, which is your mastery. So this could be interesting if you like combined Cleave with Trauma. But normally I'm going to choose Unbridled Wrath, or even actually Warbreaker is probably the better one. Warbreaker is literally your artifact ability from Legion built into the spec. And this is really cool because it's only a 45-second cooldown. It actually replaces Colossus Smash. It does the exact same thing as Colossus Smash, but a little bit more damage, and it's a pretty short cooldown. And it's also an AoE effect. So let me just show you. It's even a new animation too. So you like jump on the ground and you like slam on the ground, and you apply Colossus Smash to all of the targets around you. I think this is probably going to be the more cookie cutter spec for AoE, like the one that I have now. I think that Warbreaker is very, very good. And since it's on a 45-second cooldown, you know, combining that with Blade Storm, you could, or even Ravager on a 1-minute cooldown, I think that there's a lot of possibilities there, especially since you can combine Warbreaker with Anger Management and actually get a lot lower cooldown overall. But anyways, moving on, we have Mortal Combo, which was completely reworked. Mortal Strike increases the damage of your next melee ability by 15%. So in a way, like what you could do is you could use your Mortal Strike, and then you could basically use Overpower, and you would have a bonus amount of damage added to Overpower, and then you can also like Overpower twice and then empower your next Mortal Strike, and then, you know, use Mortal Strike, and like basically every one of your abilities, if you do play Mortal Combo, if you're factoring in like sudden death executes, you can actually empower all of your abilities, which I think is really cool. Like you could basically Mortal Strike, increase the damage of your next Overpower, and then Overpower increases the damage of your next Mortal Strike, and then you could also, like when you get a sudden death proc, you can empower literally both. You can use Overpower to empower your execute by 40%, and then also like have Mortal Combo up or something along those lines, and then you could have that empower execute. That would be a really cool playstyle, basically using your abilities to empower the other ones and getting the most max damage you can. I think that that's pretty cool. And then last but not least, we have Deadly Calm, which is actually a cool ability to me. So it reduces the rage cost of your abilities by 100% for 10 seconds. So there's a couple things I want to say about this ability. The very first thing is I have not had any problems generating rage on the alpha as an arms warrior, as I've been playing through, killing mobs and whatnot. I don't know if it's different because I'm fighting mobs that attack me, and when mobs attack me, I gain more rage, and I'm also killing mobs, which triggers War Machine, so maybe there will be rage starvation problems, but I think it's really cool to have an offensive cooldown that doesn't increase your damage, and isn't, like, you don't have to use this offensive cooldown immediately. Like, I think it's cool to have an offensive cooldown that speeds up your rotation and makes your rotation easier and faster. And that's what Deadly Calm does. It's a lot more engaging to me whenever I press an offensive cooldown and I get to play my class in a way that's impossible due to the resources that I have. And having that be more of the focus of an offensive cooldown as opposed to like Avatar, that just gives you 20% increased damage for a certain amount of time, or like the new True Shot on Marksman Hunter, which just gives you 20% damage for 20 seconds, and that's it. It's refreshing to have an offensive cooldown that's like designed in a way that makes you feel like you can play your class to the maximum potential that it can, without having to worry about the resources that you have. And that's why I think Deadly Calm is cool. You know, I enjoy offensive cooldowns like this. We're gonna move on to the last here. Every 20 rage you spend on reduces the cooldown of your Roy Breaker / Colossus Smash and Blade Storm by 1 second. Okay, so I actually don't know it, or wait, sorry. You can't actually combine this with Ravager. I don't know what I was thinking. You can't combine this with Ravager, obviously, because they're on the same tier. But if you do choose to not choose Ravager, which does replace Blade Storm, then you will be able to reduce your Blade Storm overall cooldown combined with Warbreaker, as based on how much rage you spend. So that's definitely interesting. We have Dreadnought, which I think is the main single target cooldown, or talent. The main single target talent, which is going to basically give you an extra charge of Overpower, and also it increases the damage of your next Mortal Strike or Execute by an additional 20%, similar to how Overpower works. I don't know if that's a tooltip bug or what, but Dreadnought is definitely I mean, having like an extra 20% damage on your Execute or Mortal Strike is very interesting to me, and I think that the single target talent is going to be more so on this one, but obviously this is subject to change, so it doesn't really matter. Then we have Ravager, works the exact same, nothing really different there. 1 minute cooldown, a lot of damage, generates rage, so nothing really crazy there. Basically combining that with Warbreaker on the regular will allow for a lot of AoE damage in a pretty short window of time, since they line up pretty well. Like, this is a 45-second Warbreaker cooldown, and we have a 1 minute Ravager cooldown, so every 1 minute you can do a huge amount of AoE damage. And outside of that, guys, like, those are pretty much all the talents. I think I want to talk about the Arms Warrior class moving on from Legion. I think that the Arms Warrior has really gone, like, I felt like Arms Warrior was kind of boring, to be honest. I leveled one, I played through it, I got it up to, like, you know, heroic TOS item level whenever heroic TOS was relevant, and I just felt like the rotation was like, it had a lot of downtime in it. I felt like it was just so cooldown based and like RNG based in a way with Tactician, because you would always have to reset your Colossus Smash, and if you didn't have Colossus Smash up, you just felt like a little potato. And you know, playing this version of Arms Warrior now, where it's more focused on actually having your active cooldowns, but the cooldowns are lower, and then Overpower is in the rotation now, so it kind of like spices that up. Like, check this out. You can actually put up your Warbreaker, you can Ravager, and then you can spam your Whirlwind to just kill everything, similar to how you can in Legion. But there's also several different specs that go with this. Like, you can play a single target spec, and the single target spec doesn't really have downtime, doesn't have that AoE focus, or sorry, that RNG focus that was so relevant in Legion. Like, these Tactician procs only reset my Overpower, which just gives me another damage button to press, whereas in Legion, you would have to reset your Colossus Smash, and if you didn't, you just didn't do anything. And I think that the Arms Warrior is definitely moving in the right direction. I'm sure that there's a couple things to tweak. Like, I don't know when you would ever use Cleave over Warbreaker, for example. And like with Impending Victory, this is definitely a PvP cooldown. I kind of miss Shockwave in a way, and I don't know how Skull Splitter is going to fit into the overall damage rotation, because I don't have problems with Rage, just off of my point of view. But I'm pretty happy with how Arms Warrior is shaping up, guys. So I'm going to actually play some leveling footage for you guys to see, just so you can see how the rotation works. I'm going to be playing the AoE spec. And I'm just going to let you guys sit back, relax, and enjoy a couple minutes of just straight up DPS on the BFA Alpha.
I'm out of range. It's too far away. I need to get closer. It's too far away.
Alright guys, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give a big thumbs up on it and show some support for the channel. You can also leave a comment down below with what your thoughts are on the Arms Warrior changes for BFA Alpha, and if Blizzard is moving in the right direction. There's obviously a lot to change and a lot of time to change things, so if there are things that the community dislikes, I'm sure Blizzard will be listening to that feedback. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel if you have not already, to be up to date with everything that's going on with the Battle for Azeroth Alpha. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a good one.